Hi there. So we're going to, in this video, write some code that responds to mouse clicks and to key presses. So you have seen before the idea of using mouse X and mouse Y variables to control what happens in code. Let's look at this example. When I run this code, the background changes based on the um, mouse X variable, right? Which is automatically, the value of which is automatically captured by the X value of the user's mouse. So that's what we've done before. And so in this video, I want to look at mouse clicks. How can we have our code respond to mouse clicks? And we're going to have to do that a little bit differently. In this case, we were just using a variable right in here for mouse X. I'm going to send that back to R. Notice in my code right here, I have RGB as values declared and initialized right at the top of my code, and all I'm doing is using those to set the background. So to get to mouse clicks, we're going to need to add a new function here, a new function definition. So each of these blocks of code is called a function definition. This is the definition of the setup function. This is the definition of the draw function. The computer, you can think of this as like, this is what it means to draw. All the code in here is what it means to draw. All the code in here is what it means to set up. We need a new function that shows what we should do when the mouse is pressed. And so the function is called function mouse pressed. It's be written just like this with the word function, mouse pressed, all lowercase except with a capital P in the middle. That's called camel case. Open, close parentheses, end with a curly brace, opening curly brace, and then a closing curly brace down at the end. And all the code between those two curly braces is our block of code there. So this is what will happen if the mouse is pressed. This is a special P5 function, which is why it's important that it's written just like this, because P5, this is called an event handler function or a listener. It's always listening for this to happen. And as soon as this happens, then the code will run. That's the event that it's handling. The mouse being pressed is considered the event. So what do we want to do when the mouse is pressed? Let's change our R, G, and B value. So we could say R gets 0, G gets 255, and B gets 0. That will give us a nice green color to the background when the mouse is pressed. So let's push play. We come on over here, and then when I press the mouse, the background turns green. And you can put anything you want in here, of course. Let's say the red plus equals 40. So we're setting our green and our blue, but every time we click the mouse, red will increase by 40. So let's run this, just get the green, and then I just keep clicking and my red is continuously increasing in there. And what we find is that red and green together make a yellow, so our red value is sort of maxed out together with the green, and that's why we get the yellow in this case. So I'm not gonna increment red on every click now, I'm just gonna set it back to a certain value there. So no matter how many times I press the mouse, it will always have the same amount of red now. So another function, a built-in event handler or listener function is function mouse released. And you might be able to guess what this does. All it does is set the values back to something else. It listens for the mouse click to be released. And we can set some new values there. This will be sort of a dark yellow, I guess. All right, so let me run that again. Sorry, I did that too fast. When the mouse is clicked, it turns green, and then when the mouse is released, it turns to my new color here, this burnt orange color, which is defined by these combination of RGB values. And then there's one more listener function for the mouse, and that is function mouse dragged. And so when the mouse is being dragged on the page, that means between the press and the release is the drag, and that would be another listener that's always there, and we can have something happen when we're dragging the mouse as well. So let's just set everything, set it to black there. So click drag, release. Uh, and um, and that's it for our mouse listener functions. Now, the other thing we're going to do here, you might think about how you can use those for, controlling a game. Our game that we work on are mostly going to be key press related. And so we also need to figure out how to get P5 to respond to key presses. Well, if there's listener functions for a mouse, then there's also for the keys. So there's key pressed. And when we run this, I come over here, and as soon as I push a key on my keyboard, it changes to green. Let me do that again. You can't see my keyboard, but I'm going to click the R button, and it turns to green because it's listening for this key press. And as soon as a key is pressed on the keyboard, then the function is run. This block of code that's contained within the curly braces is run. Now, if you imagine a game program, it's not usually just any old key on the keyboard. We want to be able to listen for certain keys, right? So this is listening for any key that's pressed. So how do we listen for only certain keys? Like I want to move left as if A is pressed, and right if D is pressed, like a WASD type of setup. So we use the same listener function for that, but we just use if statements inside it. And there's a special way to do that. You'd say if key, so key is a built-in variable that holds whatever key was pressed. So if key equals R, no, let's do R. We can increase the red. Then the red value will increase by 40. If the key is green, then the green value will increase by 40. And let's run this code. You could do the same thing with the blue, and I'm over here, and I push any old key and nothing happens, but when I push the red value is increased, and when I push the G, the green value is increased. And again, we get this red-green combo that makes yellow a little unexpected, but that's the way it is with RGB. Okay, so here's how you go about capturing key presses of certain keys. Let's just look at how we might use this to say, like, move something on the screen. So we could do 200, 220, put a circle in the center of the screen. Let's just make it a black fill. And then we can do, like a WASD. So W will move it up. Well, I got to control this Y value if I'm going to be moving it up. So let's just leave those variables here, and we'll let Y be the Y value of our circle. And instead of 200, I'll put Y in there. And W will move me up. So that means I need to increase the Y value if W is pressed. And similarly, we'll go down if S is pressed. So we're using WASD as our controllers, and then Y plus equals -40 to move down. Let's see what happens now when I run the code. There's my circle. Push any old key, nothing happens. But when I push a W, whoops, I did it backwards. Look at that. W moves me down and S moves me up. Okay, so remember that Y axis is flipped. I make that mistake all the time. And 40 is a bit steep. Let's go 4. So we can, it's a little more like fluid movement. There we go. And now I move up when the W is pressed and down when the S is pressed. One thing to note that's pretty important here, I don't know if you noticed this in the recording, but with the key presses, I am always clicking on my sketch as soon as I push play and then pushing my keys. And that's because when you're typing over here, da 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 da, and then you push the play button, then I start typing again. I'm not actually, like, this isn't actually this isn't activated. Well, actually nothing's activated because that was an error. When I push the play button, I need to click over here to sort of like activate the canvas, and then I can push my keys. So if you push play and then just start pushing keys and nothing happens, you're like, my sketch is broken. Just remember to click onto the sketch, and then it's listening for the key presses. Okay. Let's see that. Oh, maybe you want to do like a arrow key. So we can do, how do we do, like, instead of WASD, we want to do like arrow. Well, what we do is say like down arrow, write it like that, no quotes, all caps with an underscore between the words. And it's not key anymore. Now it's key code. And actually, I want that to be up arrow, right? I already made this mistake once. Okay. Now I can push the up arrow to move up. Nothing happens with the down arrow because I'm not asking if anybody pushed the down arrow, but the S will still move it down. Of course, I'll leave it to you to do something a little more intelligent with your key presses. Okay, so that's it. Basics on how to do, oh, there's one more thing. Right, there's mouse pressed and key pressed, and there's mouse released. There's also key released. So that might be useful for you. Let's go just a little simpler here and say if the up arrow, it's going up. And then for key released, if the key that's released was the up arrow, then well, this is getting a little weird because this means every time I click the up arrow, it's going to go up one. Let's set this to a speed. Let's get a speed variable here. So let speed equal, we'll start off with 0, and then we'll move it according to the speed, just like we've done on our DVD logo thing. So y gets y plus speed, which could be shortcutted just as y plus equals speed. And then when I push the up arrow, I want to set the speed. So speed equals 4 when the up arrow is pressed. And then when the up arrow is released, let's set speed back to 0. Now when I run my code, I can do my up arrow. Woo! That was backwards, right? Smith. Let's do 2. Make it go a little slower. So now up arrow, and then when I release, nothing else happens anymore. So press, release. So that will allow you to continue a motion while the key is being pressed. So we listen for the press and set it to a value on the press, and then we listen for the release and sort of turn off that value. So there's an approach to using key pressed and key released together to do some sort of fluid motion. Okay, I already said this was it once before, and then I was just kidding and I kept going. Now this really is it. We've looked at how to handle mouse clicks, and then we've looked at how to handle key presses, but also how to handle key releases because those are really useful too. Happy coding.